Good morning. We're thrilled to be here again with a CyberX event and as the Phelps Group sponsoring the Careerxpo today. We look forward to being back in person with everyone at some point again soon, but in the interim, we're thrilled to be here virtually. I'm Jayson Phelps with the Phelps Group, an executive search, leadership development, and career transition firm that's been operating just over 30 years. I'm joined today with Kush Sharma, the CISO for the City of Toronto, who I'll introduce more formally shortly. As we know, the world is facing a chronic shortage of cybersecurity talent as new technologies and new threats increase, and the world is working remotely as we are today. All we have to do is look at what's unfolding in front of us to know how important the work you do or are looking to do safeguards and secures our society. Right now, there's a $3 billion price tag for cybercrime in Canada. Approximately 11,000 professionals work in the country in cybersecurity, and we're seeing a demand of over 60% within the next 1 to 2 years. These are still pre-COVID rates, which we expect to see even higher numbers now. Plans are underway, of course, in the country to invest just over $500 million over the next few years to combat the cybercrime. But the rapid march of technology and associated cyber risks are outpacing the ability for organizations to adapt. Ironically, in a world that is increasingly governed by hardware, software, algorithms, and new technologies such as AI, we still feel the ultimate response needs to be more human-centered. Canadian executives view the cybersecurity talent shortage as one of the top 5 challenges for managing their cybersecurity, and 50% of business leaders are calling the issue problematic. As you've heard, lots of challenges ahead, and the key ingredient is that we need more talent, and we need better trained talent to tackle the complex world of cybersecurity. As I first started off, I'm happy to be here today with one of our great cybersecurity leaders and visionaries, an individual that I've had the privilege to work with as a candidate and now as a client. Kush Sharma is a cybersecurity leader with over 18 years of consulting, industry, and public service experience. He's led the security components of 15 enterprise transformation programs, each 3 to 10 years in length, and values ranging between 50 million up to about $1 billion. He's worked with diverse teams, both onshore and offshore, spanning multiple continents, countries, and of course, operating within a 24/7 model. Kush has advised business and IT leaders through his roles at Accenture, Deloitte, and recently with Saputo as the global CISO. He's now taking on his biggest challenge, the massive task of leading the City of Toronto's cybersecurity efforts as the inaugural CISO. Kush is a certified CISSP, CISM, CISA, and CRISC. He has his BCom in IT management, has been a guest lecturer at Ryerson University, guest keynote speaker at several CISO conferences. He's published articles, he's a former instructor for the Institute of Internal Auditors, and in 2018, Kush was accepted to the Avanta Global CISO governing body. Welcome, Kush.
Thank you.
So on to our first topic. Let's talk a little bit about cybersecurity in the pandemic world. We've seen a lot of our clients across both public and private sectors say that if there is a silver lining to this, it's the fact that we've made leaps and bounds in moving cybersecurity initiatives forward and the need to adapt really to these remote work environments. What is your take on the speed of change in the industry since the pandemic's hit? And are you finding senior leaders are more willing to fast track programs during this time?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Jayson. I think that we have an advantage right now through COVID-19. There is a lot of loss of life and illness out there, so let's take a moment for that. But from a cyber perspective, I think all the programs for cyber have been accelerated Um, I've seen it at the city, and speaking with other CISOs across the country at other municipalities, they've all accelerated their programs. They're asking for increased funding next year. And I think due to the rapid deployment of various technologies, cyber has been elevated to protect that investment and to protect the specific individuals, whether they're frontline or back end through those remote channels.
Excellent, thank you. And so it would be great now, Kush, to have you. You have a very large vision and plan for the city, and just hitting your 1 year mark, just over your 1 year mark with the city now. You've had a pretty aggressive work plan in the last year. Can you give us a little insight on your vision? What is your vision for cybersecurity? What type of role can the city play, and do you see the city truly having that potential to be a leader provincially, locally, and nationally?
I think we definitely have room to become a leader in Canada. There's from a municipal perspective. So our grand vision for the next 5 years is quite interesting. It's quite exciting, and we welcome any participation from, academia, other municipalities, and the private sector. We have three pillars as part of our vision. One is really digital government and the initiative to move the City of Toronto services online in the next 3 years. And we're talking about hundreds of services that will be shifting into a new methodology and a new way of doing things. And that investment needs to be protected. And so part of digital government, the foundation and the building blocks that we need to look at as CISOs is really building the program and the infrastructure out. I'm specifically talking about municipalities where there needs to be a little bit more ramp up in terms of the posture, in terms of the investments that need to be made by the various cities. So we look at the program, we look at the actual practice and hiring people and building out the organization. We talk about working with and partnering with various agencies and corporations within a municipality. And the biggest thing in 2020 that we've achieved is we've built, I think, the first ever cyber diplomacy practice in North America for the city of Toronto. And that's really the political arm of it. Where I see the CISO role going in the future for government is that the CISO is a business function, which we are at the city of Toronto. We are no longer part of the IT function, and we report directly to the city manager. And we will be focused on the business. We'll focus on risk management, and we're focused on providing services to the citizens. And then the infrastructure is the normal cybersecurity kind of play, right? And those table stakes need to be put in first to build out the infrastructure in order for us to scale, which is the traditional cyber fulfillment center, threat management, command and defense, awareness, and then the actual technologies, the infrastructure. The second piece, when we have the foundation, is really to improve the quality of life of our staff and of our citizens and everyone that lives in the city of Toronto. And we want to become the global leader in urban cyber innovation. We want to stimulate opportunities, whether they're social or financial. From a social perspective, we'll be looking at things like digital identity and working out the systems internally, but also looking at it from an external perspective of providing those digital identities to all 3 million citizens of Toronto and the businesses that operate within Toronto. And we want to be, a cyber city, and we want to be competitive. We want to, be number one in the world, and we want to look at opportunities like trade missions, incubation, and then innovation to bring the cyber talent to Toronto from the global perspective. Financially, we are looking at how we operate in a different way. In the next 5 years, we're looking to go from a cost center to a profit center. And how we're going to do that is we're going to work with private sector, we're going to work with academia and not-for-profit, et cetera. And we're going to bring everyone together in a partnership model to to help us generate that revenue. And then we're looking really from a financial perspective to also build out eventually a cyber reserve where people can sign up that want to do good for the city. And if the city has kind of major breaches, we would call on that reserve to help. We do have some consulting partners that have already signed up for this pro bono to help. So, we take baby steps to achieve the vision, but it is feasible and it is possible. And the last fundamental pillar of our vision, which is the most important, is equity. And we want to be a frontline service, not just a back-end service doing administration. We really want to help people in the city of Toronto. We want to provide that direct cyber support to the residents. And we want to make sure there's some sort of equity and equitable outcomes that come out of everything that we do. And this is more of a 5-year vision, right? We have to work on this, but we will build, in our capability as cyber professionals, we have the skill sets for threat intelligence. We can build on that and build an infrastructure where we can partner with various law enforcement agencies. We can partner with not-for-profits and actually build out a service directly to citizens to find missing children, to find missing persons. The other advocacy piece of this is really cyberbullying and curbing that. I feel very strongly about that. We have to do things that are important for the people and the citizens. And we have to change our thinking as CISOs to look at those services frontline and actually providing some benefits to the folks that need it the most. And one of those communities is children. And so we could work in partnership with various organizations to have potentially in the future frontline services that children can come in and if they're thinking about committing suicide, for example, for us to help and work with various departments in the city and other agencies to help those children, help those youth figure out how to navigate through cyberbullying situations. The other advocacy piece, which is really fundamental to our thinking and how we want to change what a CISO does, is we want to help fight poverty. And our initiative called Cyber Poverty is really looking at trying to build in the next 5 years the biggest resource for cybersecurity in the world, right? And we would work with other partners within Toronto and outside of Toronto to build that. And education for me is the number one thing to get out of poverty. So many folks do not have that capability financially to actually go to school and get that higher level of education. So if those resources are provided for free and they can do self-learning through partnerships, then they can still, access the cybersecurity market, which there's a big skill set gap, and get those good paying jobs and break out of that cycle of poverty. And the last piece in the next 5 years is really looking at providing subsidized cyber healthcare for vulnerable communities. So the City of Toronto is already working on very innovative stuff with free Wi-Fi for vulnerable communities as the COVID pandemic continues. So, expanding on that, we have looked at a program for subsidized cyber healthcare, right? So that is not something that will be implemented immediately. We're looking at table stakes first, but that is part of our vision. And the framework piece of the equity component of our vision is also important because we have to work with the province and the federal government to update the cyber policies and regulations in Canada. So once that happens, there'll be more equity in the system. And we want to build the first ever equity framework for cyber in the country. And so if certain criteria are not met, and we're trying to deploy an initiative, we have to think twice to make sure, for example, if we deploy a technology or some sort of service and, 2/3 of Torontonians cannot access it, we have to question ourselves going forward is why are we doing that, right? And the last piece is we want to develop the norms of cyberspace behavior, probably the first one. We want to try to be the first ones in Canada, but we will work with others in partnership to develop this. It's sort of like a declaration of, how you should maneuver in cyberspace, the guidelines, the ethical behaviors, etc., and really creating that overview framework and declaration for people as a guideline on how to act and how to behave, and what's good and what's not in cyberspace. And it's just meant to be a guideline, right, for people who are not familiar or don't have access to that world. So that, in a nutshell, is the vision of the city of Toronto when it comes to cyber, and what we're planning to do in the next 5 years. So it's quite exciting.
Huge. It's huge. It reaches far beyond the city itself, and as you mentioned, into the communities and into partnership. We see a lot of emphasis on governments really stepping up around cybersecurity and taking a drive. I'm curious, I mean, you've had extensive experience in private and public as well. What do you think is the responsibility of private sector to step up on this, Kush, and partner with public sector?
Yeah, I think it's vital, right? Because from a municipal perspective, right, we're primarily tax-based funded. We do have revenue sources from water, or there are some rate-based revenues that are coming in, but mostly it's tax-based. And with the task-based, we have to focus on some of the more critical life safety issues, right? Making sure that people are safe and secure. And there's a lot of emphasis on things like community housing and vulnerable communities. So we have to take care of our citizens and society, and that always comes first, right? Any administrative type function right now is seen as a cost center. It's basically funded by the tax base. So private sector really, I would say, has an opportunity, actually, for the first time, at least with the city of Toronto, to build the relationships, to partner with us, to think of innovative ideas, to look at things that we weren't considering, right, as a government for. And the ideas and innovation, out of the box thinking that we're looking for, is really to not only help the city, but also has those residual benefits for private sector. So we would come up with some innovations where we can monetize some of our IP and our thinking and the work that we do with private sector, and the private sector obviously gets the benefit with working with various governments on leading edge stuff, innovation stuff, right? That is kind of outside the regular norm of thinking.
Interesting. Thanks, Kush. It's interesting. Let's shift over to the people side a little bit, and sort of the business skills that we're seeing evolve in cybersecurity, and the need to have those skills and the communication skills. A recent Gartner study on cybersecurity cited a growing urgency to treat cybersecurity as a business decision. The report said the industry is facing slowing budget growth, and that boards are pushing back and asking for improved data, improved understanding of where the investment has gone after all of these years. One of the things that struck me in the report was that boards and C-suites often still view cybersecurity as a technology issue. And as we both know, we need more emphasis on the people side of this equation. You and I have sat through a lot of interviews over the last few months, and as I'm sure you could resonate, the technical skills often isn't the issue that we're facing in trying to find the right folks for your team. It's really the soft skills, the competencies, those skills around leadership. Can they build a team? Can they mentor staff? Can they create cohesion in these hybrid structured teams that we're seeing in cybersecurity? The communication skills, being able to put business cases forward and work with business leaders. And of course, the stakeholder management piece. Kush, you've been able to crack the code, let's say, on the soft skills, and have been successful in getting organizations to invest in cybersecurity and really understand the value of cybersecurity throughout your career. How are you now preparing your teams, and how are you developing your staff to have these competencies and this, let's call it the soft skills that are so critical to help business leaders understand the value?
Yeah, thank you, Jayson, for that question. I think the first thing is that it doesn't happen overnight. So education of other colleagues and executives. In our case, for the city council, the clerk's office, and other division leaders, takes time. So when I say it takes time, I mean you're looking at at least 6 months to a year to properly educate, every single leader on the importance of cyber. And I think one of the biggest things that we accomplished was that we made cybersecurity a business function at the City of Toronto, right? So that's really the first step is if you're a business function and you report to the city manager, in our case, it's the city manager and the deputy city manager corporate services. We have a hybrid relationship and matrix model, and that's another topic for another day, but the reporting structures have to change. We became a independent division in January 2020. So we are called the Office of the CISO. So with that, we have rightfully so independence of any division. So we have no influence over us. We're completely independent. We operate independently. We investigate where we have to investigate, and we help the organization. And at the City of Toronto, in order to get the increased funding, the ramp up of people, etc., and the buy-in, we also we spend hundreds and hundreds of hours educating leaders. It doesn't happen right away. And in terms of communication, our strategy is from the staff perspective. We're looking at people obviously with technical skill sets to do the job, but we also interview them for their communication skills. So if it's a role that is kind of more back end, right, we focus on technical. But if it's a role that it's a hybrid where they need to speak to clients, then we put a weighting on the soft skills also. From a leadership perspective, let's say managers or director level, we are focused on hiring folks that have the communication skills and have the business background. We are in the process of hiring, and many of the folks that we're hiring in certain areas, not the technical areas, like traditional cyber operations, but a lot of the other areas, we're hiring folks that are not really cybersecurity folks. They're business folks from different areas of the business, and then we're training them on cybersecurity because they have those soft skills, they have the political skills, they have the business acumen. They came from the business. They came, from legal. They came from different departments, contract management, etc. And so then it's a lot easier to train them on the technical aspect than it is the soft skills. And then we also have a program that we're going to be implementing next year for those leaders that only focuses on soft skills, right? And we're going to spend a lot of investment and training dollars on that side of the house, right? Because most of the folks that are joining already have certifications. They're highly competent technically. And they're excited to join the city.
Yeah, spot on. It's interesting. The cybersecurity skills gap. I mean, it's a prominent issue right across the board, and then we see it everywhere. I saw recently a study talking about the number of unfilled cybersecurity jobs. We've gone from 1 million in 2014 to over 3.5 million by 2021. According to Cisco, this is all in light of ransomware attacks increasing by 300-400% a year. It's a major issue, and we're seeing places like the City of New York investing heavily and working with industry to address this problem. This very much ties into your vision for the city as well. I think Cyber New York City is a coalition of education and industry partners that's been launched and described as a truly sort of groundbreaking $100 million private public investment to address this and to try to deal with this. Can you just briefly maybe talk about what you think we can do collectively, public sector, private sector, and academia, let's say, to try and close this gap as a society in Canada? And do you think an angle that the City of New York has taken has value for us here in Canada, or is there a different approach?
I think it is of value. They've obviously figured out a way to increase the profile and get the funding. So we should definitely have that conversation with them and look at that model. And we probably have to adapt it to the Canadian environment, but it's something that they've been working on for years and they've done. So we can just leverage that and speak to them and understand how they built it, and then potentially accelerate it on our side.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Interesting. Last sort of topic I want to touch on today, Kush, is around the diversity, inclusion, and equity piece. With the awakening around the world to be much more inclusive, obviously, and teams see the value of being truly more diverse. I know these are key priorities for the City of Toronto. We've worked with the City of Toronto pushing about 20 years now, and it's always been a key priority for the city. I'm sure there's lots of conversations that you have with your colleagues around this topic and how to continually raise the bar on this. I mean, the average Canadian cybersecurity team is only 29% female, and that gap is particularly acute at the executive level. As you think of the work ahead to be more inclusive as a sector, what are some of those pieces that you're doing right now and that you'd like to continue to do to try and close that gap around diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I think number one, diversity and inclusion is really at the top of the agenda, especially for municipalities at this moment in time. I'm a supporter of that. The City of Toronto has specific policies, and probably leading in some of those policies. So we have some of those programs and policies already in place at the city, and we obviously follow those. I think from my perspective and the new organization that we're building, I'm open to look at everything. I think we have to start with an open mind, and people's experiences, their backgrounds, is part of that openness. So, although, I think everyone is going to get a fair shot at the City of Toronto for the office of the CISO. We're open to folks that are innovative and smart despite their backgrounds. So we're looking for the best talent. We're looking for people who love the city, who wanna build a practice, who want to be innovative, who have lots of ideas. Those are the type of people we're looking for. And to me, actually doesn't make any difference what their backgrounds are in terms of diversity, right? Culture, religion, it doesn't matter, right? Gender. We're looking for people that are smart and that want to really do good for society. And that will come out in the interviews. That will come out in how we're building the new culture in my organization. So we're definitely open to all walks of life, and I embrace it. And I understand, because myself being a minority, right? I think the city is moving in the right direction, but I think we have to also keep in mind that we have to be fair, and we have to go through the recruiting process and the hiring process with a lens of equity. So it's for me, it's about the best person, right? It's not about them being from a certain race or religion or gender. It's about the actual individual and the person, and everyone I believe should have a fair shot.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Kush. And of course, the outreach around any of our recruitment processes, and as we partner with the city continually, it's always a big priority for us to ensure that we're really partnering with some of these organizations, some of the associations that can ensure that we are reaching as broad and diverse of an audience when we're recruiting as possible. So that's great. I guess just ending on a sort of a positive note. What are you, as you think about the next generation of cybersecurity leaders, what are you most optimistic about?
So I'm definitely optimistic. I think the cyber blood runs in my family. My brother is also a CISO. My kids think all I do is hack all day long, which is not true. So I see it. I see it in the school systems. I see a lot of the new generation of children coming up have this kind of idea from the movies and the TV of what someone in cybersecurity does. And I think, yeah, I think that my kids think we're all a bunch of hackers, which is kind of funny. But I think we should leverage that, right? They're already motivated. They see all these movies. So what we have to do is try to take advantage of that and educate them of all the various domains of cybersecurity, and how cybersecurity can do good, right? Because the media really shows the negative piece of it. What we have to do is really show the positive, that we're trying to stop those bad actors. We're trying to stop those hackers. It's the opposite. We're trying to protect the system. We're trying to protect life safety of people. So that's the message that I bring. And I personally am very excited because I see our educational institutions more and more have more and more cyber programs. There's a lot more graduates coming out of various schools and colleges, universities that are focused on cyber. I think it's still going to take 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, in terms of the gap, but we're definitely heading towards the right direction. The other thing is I think we have to, as CISOs, really bring the education sector into this, and they really have to start teaching grade school children about cybersecurity, like they do coding. So my sons, they're young, they go to elementary school, and they're learning coding. So we have to try to get to a point where we can have a course on cybersecurity and the benefits of it and how it helps society from that age, so that by the time they get to university, they're already fully versed technically in cybersecurity, right? And then more and more of these the new generation will be ready to take on those roles. And some of us have taken a longer time because the industry is still maturing. But with the new generation, which is motivating, by the time they get to university or college, they'll be experts. So the kids learn really quickly, and I think we need to work together across private sector, public sector, and academia to bridge that gap.
Interesting. And it sounds like from your comments, I mean, it's beyond even post-secondary. This is embedding right into K to 12, and really building it up from the start. As we all are all aware, I mean, there are huge opportunities in cybersecurity for new entrants, as well as well-established security specialists. You've heard today, everyone, about the city's ambitious vision and plan for cybersecurity. Kush is currently in the process. You're building out your sort of phase one, let's say, of your team over the next 3 to 5 years. And I know that, especially just with the work we're doing and seeing the recruitments that are on the city's website as well, there's huge opportunity within your team right now. And I'm sure that you're very keen to be looking for ambitious cybersecurity professionals to be joining your team, and anyone that's watching today, of course. So if there is any interest from folks today in exploring what the city is doing, certainly do check out the city's website. It's toronto.ca/jobs, and you will see a whole onslaught of positions from Kush's office posted there, and certainly explore that. Finally, just on our side, we at Phelps are excited to have recently created a partnership with Cyberx, and we're in the process of developing the Phelps cybersecurity practice ourselves. As Kush has talked about today, we feel the approach to the talent shortage in cybersecurity must be holistic. And as such, we've pulled together an advisory board of cybersecurity leaders, both from public and from private sector, to work with us in building out a best-in-class hiring framework, development framework, assessment framework, and then really trying to embed some of those opportunities around mentorship and recruitment, of course, as well. So feel free to check out our newly launched site, phelpscybersecurity.com, and join in our conversation on social media using the hashtag #MindTheGap. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. And Kush, I think we have 2 questions, it looks like, here that we'll just take a look at. Question 1, is the city looking to hire security interns or graduate students?
We will be as part of phase 2 and phase 3. I think right now we're focused, because it's a smaller team, focused on folks with more experience that can come in and start doing the job day 1. But we do have opportunities for graduates for phase 2 and phase 3.
Excellent, great. And second question, individual's question. I didn't study cybersecurity technically, but I have experience in running education and awareness programs. Is there a role for my skills in the office of the CISO?
Yeah, so if you do have the background in running education awareness programs, I think there's one posting up right now for the cyber awareness and training program specialist. So, we're open to folks that have that background. It obviously, there's high demand for a lot of these jobs. So I think, there's a lot of folks applying. It goes through the recruitment process, obviously, but yeah, if you have those skills, I would encourage you to apply.
Excellent. Kush, thank you very much for joining me today on this. I know how crazy busy you are right now with this ambitious vision, and I do truly appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of today's sessions.